Okay, I think we are live. I'll go ahead and tweet it out, make sure everyone knows.
Okay. I'm going to tweet it out too. Let me see if I can do that. Oopsie. I need to find you. We can talk while we do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Okay. So let's just go ahead and do some icebreaker questions just to before people come. So what book are you currently reading right now?
I'm currently reading 2 books right now. I'm reading
Hey guys, it's Sarah.
Oops, I'm sorry, there you are again. I found the YouTube channel. Okay. I'm currently reading Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. I'm almost done with that one. I read it before, and it was I wanted to go to Savannah from the moment I read it, and so I've been to Savannah, and since I was at Jennifer Armentrout's ApollyCon in February, I started to read it just to get the feel of the story again, and I'm also reading Kylie Scott's Lick.
Okay.
Yep. I started that series, the Stage Dive series, and I really wish I wasn't so busy because it's one of those books where I'm around 30% now, and I've stopped because I want to have like hours to just sit in a comfortable chair with a really good cup of tea and just be with David and Ev because it's awesome. I really, really love it.
Yeah, so that series, I started that series a while ago, I think, and every single book, like, I stay up until midnight trying to finish it because they're so, like, attention grabbing. It's really good.
Yeah, they are awesome. I was sitting in Payway, and I had an hour between having my hair done and going to see my attorney. And so I was having lunch and I started reading it, and it was so stupid because I was like, oh, I don't want to go to my attorney. And I was reading it at the stylist, and they came in, they wanted to wash my hair, and they do a hair massage. And this is how the book was. I was ticked that they interrupted my reading so they could give me a head massage.
Yeah,
want that.
All right, so what is your favorite book of all time?
My favorite book of all time is To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay.
Book. I mean, not romance novel. It's I haven't read Ghost at a Watchman, and I don't have any intention to do it either.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things about it. I haven't read To Kill a Mockingbird yet. I do plan on reading it very soon, but I've heard a lot about it, and it wasn't required reading for me in high school, surprisingly. So, but both my parents read it. I'm sorry?
Obviously, I suggested it's a really beautiful story. It's a lot more than you would probably expect it to be. And once you read it, you'll kind of understand why the people who Ghost at a Watchman is not something you want to dive into after that. But anyway, it's a beautiful, beautiful story.
All right, so I have a few questions for the book Bounty, and they're not spoilery at all, so I do want to get to those as well. But then I have just some general questions that I'd like to ask you regarding your books and that kind of thing. So the first thing I wanted to ask is, what's your writing process like?
These days, erratic. I tend to be obsessive with my writing. I don't take any notes. I don't do any outlining. I don't do any preparation before. If I need to research something, it happens when I'm writing it, and when it comes up, like Deke in Bounty is when he settles in for a while, he works construction, and I needed to figure out how long it took to spray a room with paint. And so I watched this guy spray a room on YouTube. It takes like 8 minutes. It's really, really fast. But anyway, and so I just, when he had to do that in the book, I went and researched it. Sometimes I take notes while I'm writing because I want to make sure to close loops and, remember things about characters and stuff like that. And I used to just fall into it and not be able to stop. And that isn't very healthy. You don't get up and move around very much, don't eat very well. Sometimes you don't shower, you don't get out of your house. So I've stopped doing that, and I'm trying to figure out how to balance writing and having a life. And I will admit that it's probably going to mean that I will be producing less, but it will also probably mean that what I produce, I hope, will be better and fresher and more exciting, and because I'll be feeling the well.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. And it's really interesting that you don't outline, because a lot of your books connect. A lot of the series are connecting and the characters are interlacing. So in my head, I would probably have to write it all down to remember it, but that's really cool that you, kind of just go with the flow. Let the story take its way. That's really awesome. Okay, so let's see, what else? Where do you get the inspiration for the guys in your novel? They're very unique.
Well, I tell this story a lot. I had a girlfriend who's English, and she was visiting me in America. It was the first time she'd ever been to America. She's been now several times, but and and Arizona too. Arizona is like the Wild West, the modern Wild West. And she really couldn't get over the men here, because not only are there a lot of very good looking men, they're very alpha men down here. And so she was like, I didn't know men like this really actually existed. And she said, I've never met an alpha man in my life. And I was just staring at her like, really? Because that's all I had in my life. I had, my grandfather was, he was actually a spy during World War II. He's exceptionally intelligent, but he was very, very traumatized by his experiences in the war. So he was like the quiet, protective alpha. And then my uncle was a fighter pilot during the Vietnam War, and he was the kind of hilarious, cocky, exceptionally protective alpha guy. My brother is he's very funny, and he has 2 sisters and lived in a house with 5 women and 2 guys, and he was uber protective, especially of his sisters. He's the youngest brother, but you would swear he was the oldest brother because he looked after us, and he is he will sit outside and shout for some, in the pool, and shout for somebody to go get him a drink. And the women will rush to go get him a drink. It's just because we love him. Yeah. And so obviously, I just take little bits of that. My brother-in-law is also a fighter pilot, and he's the quiet alpha too. And I just take little pieces of them and exaggerate them quite a bit, just for fun and fantasy, and that's where I get it.
That's awesome. Okay. And do you feel that you've put a little of your self-morals or your characteristics in your female characters?
Yes, a lot of the times. I'm, a very strong woman, and I come from a long line of, my grandmother we call her the original rock chick, because she was awesome. She was a very unique character, and and it's kind of weird in a way, because she did not come from that. I'm 47 years old, so she grew up through the Great Depression, and and her husband was gone during World War II, and she had 2 little babies, and she was very independent, and she was we grew up with our grandparents, and I would come home from school, and she'd be like, and we were poor, we grew up in a farm, and she'd be like walking out of the house with a suitcase, and we're like, what are you doing, Grandma? And she's like, going to Germany. People didn't go to Germany back then. That was like the trip of a lifetime, and she would just go because she got wild hair. So yeah. And as you grow and you mature and you live your life, I had time when I was exceptionally shy, and I I wasn't, I wasn't very good at being social, especially around guys. Guys freak me out, and handsome men, forget about it. I would shut down, and so I pull from, and now I'm not like that. Very, very social and very, very outgoing, and and so I pull a lot of things from. The only characters that aren't really like me are the kick-ass, badass heroines, because I probably couldn't do that. I couldn't be Sylvie, or I couldn't be Allie, because I'm not brave like that.
I'm sure you would be in certain situations, but yeah, I can definitely understand. When I started reading your books, I was young. I mean, I'm only 22 now, so I'm still young, and the age group that your books are targeted towards is a little bit older. And I remember thinking when I first picked up, well, I read them all out of order because I was just like, who is this author? It keeps popping up in my recommendations, so I'll just try her out. And I think I read Rock Chick first, and then I went to Motorcycle Man. So like I was totally flip-flopping all through your books, and I was like, I don't know if I can read about characters that are older than me. But then I started reading more into the characters' actually characteristics, and I connected so much with those characteristics. It didn't really matter about the age or what they were going through life-wise. It was more of like, understanding that maybe at one point my life would have those obstacles or certain things. And I don't know, it was really cool. It was a really fun experience because it was like challenging in my head. I'm like, I don't know if I can connect, and I really did. And I mean, I've read most of your books now, so obviously I love them. But yeah, I don't know. It was really, really cool. So that was a question that I had for a long time. Okay, let's see.
Well, I'm glad you're connected, by the way. That's very cool.
Yeah, I really liked because like a lot of them are shyer, or like you said, they're strong in their strong-willed, but at the same time some of them are. I don't know. I just think that there's a whole bunch of different characters, and you can always find certain characteristics in each one that you connect to. So that's really cool. Okay, let's see. What made you want to start writing books?
Well, I started reading young. I was that kid that by the time you got to junior high and high school, and you have the reading lists that I'd read all the books. I was just a reader. We had those. I don't even know if they have them anymore, and it's too bad if they don't. They probably do, but the beautiful Disney volumes, kind of the leather-bound Disney volumes that were like they were the stories of Cinderella and Snow White and everything, and it was it was essentially graphic novels. Back before graphic novels. I don't know when graphic novels started, but they were just these beautiful tomes, but they were written, and I would read them. When I was like 8. And my mom read Harlequin Presents. She read romance. She read the saucy ones too back in the day. And I just, they were books. I just picked them up and I started reading them. And then I would purloin her saucier ones, and I would read them in the dark in my bedroom, thinking that she didn't know, and she totally knew. And that was when I was like 12 or 13 with the Harlequins Presents, and I just told myself stories to go to sleep. I just was, I had real problems sleeping, and I told myself any kind of story, but usually romance stories to put myself to sleep. And then I started to do it with remembering where I nodded off the night before and picking it up. And, in my 20s, it was, it took that long for the light bulb to go off. I thought, I should start writing these down. Mm-hmm. And I did. I started, in my late 20s, mid-late 20s, I started writing them down.
That's really cool. And so it was kind of just influences as well as just having those stories pent up.
Yes, yeah. I had a lot pent up.
Yeah. All right. So it looks like I messed up a little bit because I was like, why is no one watching this? And it wasn't on my YouTube channel. So I have my email addresses connected. And so I have 2 different YouTube channels to it. And I accidentally put it to the wrong one. So I'm going to go ahead and just send out that link because they can just join in a little bit later. And I'll just apologize for that. And that way everyone can see it still because it's on the wrong thing, which makes me upset. But that's okay.
Okay, so where is it?
It's on a different YouTube channel. I'll let's see. I can send you the link in chat, I think we have on here. Let's see if it'll go.
So it's not happening on your Books and Junk thing.
No, it's connected to the same email address, but it's not on my actual YouTube channel. So I don't know why it does that, but it obviously doesn't want to work for me today. Let me see. I'll just add you to well. I'm going to click on it and make sure. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I went ahead and tweeted that out. So hopefully now we can get that rolling. I don't know why. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead. So hopefully now we can get.
Okay. So so I should tweet that too, right?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
You can see it.
All right. Okay, and I also put this on my Facebook page.
Okay.
So should I change the Facebook channel or the YouTube channel to this one on my Facebook page too? I mean, I
know it's kind of a mess. I think you could probably, yeah, you might as well change it. Let's see. Because it will be just like adding a different link. So it's kind of still to the same channel, but instead of like when you click my link, it going to the right spot, if we just have the direct link to the video, it'll go right to there.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, so you know how I gave you the link to my YouTube channel? And it takes you like directly to my YouTube channel. So this link will take you directly to the video instead of to the YouTube channel.
Okay, so let me go to Facebook, and anybody that's tuning in now is probably thinking.
I know it looks like we got one viewer, so I'm so sorry about the technical malfunctions. Yeah. That's my fault.
Okay. Hang on a second. My keyboard doesn't want to. All right. Okay.
All right.
We do all that again?
Yeah. Well, actually, it will still be up, so everyone will still be able to get to see it. They'll just be not as live.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I know, because we were getting some good questions and answers. Okay, so let's see. What was some other questions I wanted to ask? So going towards more for Deke and Bounty, when did you know in the series that you wanted to tell Deke's story?
When I started to get an inkling he needed a story when he was talking, when Lexi came in Lady Luck, and he was kind of joking around with her and Jim Billy about finding his own woman. And I really, when I first introduced him in Sweet Dreams, I just thought he would be an ancillary character and he would not have his own story. And that just kind of kept going in my head. I was thinking he needs to find somebody. He needs somebody. And so he just didn't let me go, and now he's got a book.
Yeah, and it's a very good one. So going off of that as well, did you have Justice in mind, or did she kind of just grow with your ideas of how Deke's story was going to go?
Well, he actually came to me first because I wondered what his background would be, because I kind of deviated from all, a lot of the drama and, people getting buried alive and stuff like that. With Jagged and Kaleidoscope, I try not to tell the same story over and over again. And I sold that series to my publisher Forever, and they wanted shorter novels. So I thought, well, with these, instead of, having more of the townsfolk in them, I'm going to focus on the hero and heroine and tell their story and be about them and not be about, kidnappings and, and murders and stuff like that. And I liked it. But I did that in Unfinished Heroes series. I prefer, as you can tell, much longer stories where I can pull in a lot of secondary characters and really flesh things out, because I feel like where you choose to live in your home and the way you decorate it and the way you live in it and your friends and your family and how you all communicate and really describe a character. So I miss that. Not so much in Jagged, because I felt I was able to do that in Jagged, but in Kaleidoscope I really missed not having the wider picture, especially the sisterhood involved. So I now I'm out of that contract with Colorado Mountain, and so this is my independently published book. So I could go back to having it more be about the community, and so when Deke started to come to me, with a really rather heartbreaking history, Justice then started to come to me too, and I liked that she was very Dusty-esque from Games of the Heart. She's just a together chick, and and she doesn't have any baggage, and I mean, she has a life and she has things happen to her and she has decisions she needs to make, but she's not dealing with things herself, and I like that for him. I liked a quiet together chick for him.
Yeah. That's really cool. And so a big part of Justice's life is music. What influences do you have on music? Like, what are your favorite bands? And, did you grow up with a lot of music in your family and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we did. And yes, Justice actually is I got the name from a John Cougar Mellencamp song. It's called Independence and Justice. It's one of my favorite songs of his. And I believe he named his own daughter Justice. And I just thought that was the coolest name ever. And so I'm glad I got to steal it. And, but yeah, Johnny Cougar Mellencamp, he was from Indiana. I'm from Indiana. I mean, I grew up in a house where, my grandparents were there. My mother was there. We were there, my brother and sister and I, and my aunt, who was born when my mom was 17, was there. So we had, it says on my book jackets, we had Glenn Miller and the Everly Brothers and REO Speedwagon and Whitesnake. I mean, we just had music, and my grandfather used to call us kids and ask. They had this huge bedroom at the back of the house. Call us kids back to their bedroom and make sit on the couch in their bedroom and watch my grandmother and him swing dancing to Glenn Miller. It was just what we did. We watched musicals all the time. My Fair Lady or West Side Story was always on the television. So it was just, and my aunt was always blaring some 70s, rock from her basement bedroom. So it's a major part of my life. And I couldn't tell you my favorite. Pearl Jam is one of my favorite bands. That's my go-to. I love the stories Eddie Vedder tells with his songs. And being a storyteller myself, I'm about the music, but I'm mostly about the lyrics. And when, I think it's miraculous when somebody can tell an entire story in like 2 to 4 minutes. And Bruce Springsteen is also the master of doing that. And Bob Seger is the master of doing that. And Mellencamp is the master of, I love their music, because you get these little novels and they're completely fulfilling, and they're 3 minutes long, and you get to boogie to them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's awesome, and it's really cool that you mentioned John Mellencamp, because John Mellencamp has been very influential in my life as well, just because I'm also from Indiana, and so my dad he grew up listening to John Mellencamp, and I was listening to him, John Mellencamp, when I was in the womb. Like, it was before I was even born. They blasted it around the house, and so yeah, he's very influential. And it's really funny because Roxy's character mentions, Bruce Springsteen, and how Bruce Springsteen like is the storyteller, but John Mellencamp has her heart. Like, that's how I felt, and that was really cool addition to that story. But I recently got to see him in concert in Fort Wayne, which is only about a half hour from where I grew up. So that was really cool too. Really emotional time for my dad and I. Like, I play guitar and I would play with him, play John Mellencamp songs with him and stuff. So yeah, that's really awesome. And I have the same influences. My family also really loves music, and Bob Seger and Bruce Springsteen, the Eagles. I mean, it was blasted in my house. Leonard Skinner. I'm just all over the place with my music. So that's really cool. And I know you mentioned, I know it's in the author's note of Deacon Justice's story, but you mentioned that someone wrote some of the lyrics for you. Is that true, or did you write most of them? Or
I tried to write them, and my attempts to write the lyrics in the book were terrible. So my ex-husband, who I'm still really, really close with, he's a poet. He's a published poet. He's very, very good with putting words together like that. So I sent him my song, and he made it pretty. The one of the songs, the song Justice, little snippet of lyrics that Justice's father, I proudly wrote that myself and didn't have any input. But the other song that we're talking about, which I won't say too much because it's kind of spoilery, it needed to be perfect. And so Mark, my ex-husband, he made it perfect. So I gave him the framework, and then he reworked it, and I give him all the credit because he made it magical.
Cool. Okay, so moving on from that book, because again, I don't want to get too into it because it is a little far out until it's released. Not too far, but what was I going to say? What series did you have the most fun writing as a whole?
Rock Chick. Rock Chick. Everybody wants me to write Mason Stella's spin-off story, and it's just not time. Spin-off series, and it's just not time yet. And but the person that wants to write it wants it more than anybody is me, because I miss that group of characters, and I really can't wait to start writing that again, because it was I got into deep stuff with Hector and Sadie and and Ava and Luke, but it was just fun, and the friendship and the things that they did. So I'm really looking forward to getting back to that zaniness, and I'm hoping if I can get some good time to get some things written this year, that I can start it sometime next year.
That'll be so cool. I'm excited. Now, Rock Chick was another one that I bounced around in. I didn't go in order, so I knew Daisy so well before I really knew where she came from. And so I bounced around in all the characters. But yeah, I love that series as well. Let's see. What other ones do I have? What is your most memorable concert?
What's my most memorable concert? Well, I have to say it was Public Image Limited and Big Audio Dynamite, because I punched somebody. It was the only time I was violent with another human being, but there was, I think the story is in one of the Rock Chicks. I think Indy did this, but I was in the mosh pit and I wanted a beer, and and have you ever been in a mosh pit?
Yes. Yeah.
So, you kind of have to go with the mosh pit. You have to so I got to the edge of the mosh pit, and how this is the mosh pit. And there was this girl, and she was quite petite, and she had these two huge football players standing next to her. And for some reason, as the mosh pit was undulating me to eject me, it was right where she was facing me. And she thought it was hilarious just to put her hand in my chest and shove me back in the mosh pit. And she and the two dudes were laughing their butts off. And I kept saying, excuse me, I want a beer, you know, and then I would come back into the mosh pit, excuse me, I want a beer. I need to get out, you know. And if I had like needed to get out because I was going to have a seizure or something, this would not have been funny. And so the more I undulated, the more angry I got, and she just did not let up. So when I undulated back, I punched her in the face, and she completely, I decked her. She went down, and the two huge football players just were like, and they just stared at me, and I said, excuse me, and I stepped over her prone body and went and got a beer. Yeah. It's kind of funny. I wish I hadn't hit somebody in the face, but I didn't really have a choice. You know, there was nothing. If you're in a mosh pit,
yeah, sometimes it gets
go back to the mosh pit, or you know. And she wasn't being very nice. So anyway, I think she might have learned a lesson.
Yeah, that's a cool story. I had when I was 16, my friend got me tickets to see one of our favorite bands at the time, and so we got early bird. We got in at the very front. It was so cool, and we had to wait a while until they came on. Well, this lady came up from behind, and she was drunk, and this was probably like midway through the concert. And she comes in and she like shoulders her way into the front and kind of pushes us out of the way. And we're like, what are you doing? Like, we've been here. This is where we've been. We got in a screaming fit and a mat. Like, it was horrible. And she was just so drunk that she couldn't, you know, you can't rationalize with someone like that. So, like, we finally let her like have her spot, but it probably would have got physical if I was a little bit older. That I was just like, what are you doing? Why are you in my spot? So that's a really cool story. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so who is your favorite male character out of all of your series?
I really can't pick. It's very, you know, I always say I love the one I'm with. I'm writing Knock and Franca right now, and he is like, I woke up this morning making up that book in my head and just like being all melty because he's wonderful. And Deke really held on to me for a long time. I mean, unusually long. I kept wanting to go back and reread that book because I think he's a departure to some of my heroes. But bottom line, if I had a gun to my head, it would be Lee Nightingale.
Yeah. That's cool. And what book took you the longest to write?
I keep looking over here because my bookshelves are over there, and I think it's Franca and Knock. I just went into because I got the flu and it just put me on my ass, and I just did not recover from it. And then I got these really bad allergies where I had a headache for a week. Anyway, I went in to start reading it so I could start writing again. And some of the chapters were dated in January. And I'm like, oh my gosh, did I start this book like 3 months ago? That never happens. So it might end up being Franca and Knock, because normally I can write a book in 3 weeks to a month if I have, you know, the time to do it. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
I'm excited for that one. It was so funny because a lot of times I'll reread your stories when I'm like in a book slump or something. I'll be like, oh, I know I'm gonna love it, so I'll just read it. And so I just reread 2 of the Fantasyland books, and so I'm so excited that you're working on that one because I'm like into that world and I'm ready for Knock's story. So that's really exciting to hear.
I also had with this one, I don't tend to struggle with my books. My books come very, very easily, but I had written a really rather risque sex scene for Valentine in Wildest Dreams. Mm-hmm. And I deleted that sex scene out of Wildest Dreams because it was such a departure from what else was in the book that I didn't want to offend anybody or, you know, take anybody out of the book while they're reading it. So then when I wrote Broken Dove, I actually wrote a companion novel that I was going to release with Broken Dove, where Valentine has her own love affair. Okay. And then I didn't have the guts to carry on with that, and I also had to actually finish writing Broken Dove and publish it rather than writing 2 books at the same time. So I stopped writing Valentine's story. Well, this time I decided to tell both the stories at once.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like really thrilled about the idea of telling Valentine's story, and I even announced it. But when I went away to travel and go to book signings, I couldn't get it out of my head that I didn't like what was happening. I just, it wasn't working for me. The 2 stories were so much of a departure from each other that they weren't meshing, and rather than being a compliment to each other, it was really, not. So now I have to go back and rewrite, take out all those parts with Valentine's story, and I am going to tell it. I am going to finish it, and so now there will be a novella that I'll put out next year sometime with Valentine's story. So you'll get the hints of it, and there will be little bits and pieces of it in Franca and Knox story, which I think is going to be called The Midnight Soul. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure. Nobody's ever heard that before. I'm telling you the first time, but it won't. And then we'll have one more little piece of the Fantasyland series.
That's so exciting. I'm excited. I love that series, and it took me a while to read it, just because I was so into your contemporary novels. I was like, I don't know if I want to read fantasy books. And then I actually got into the fantasy genre, and I was like, oh wait, she has fantasy books. And so it worked out so well that that like the time that I read them with what I was reading at the time, it just fit so perfectly. So I really love that series. And I have a few of your other like paranormal fantasy books I haven't read yet, and I'm really excited to get to those. So yeah, I'm just really excited. So I asked, if anybody had any questions. And we do have one, and it's from Sir Alan 2009, and they want to know: do you read negative reviews?
No, never.
No.
Or I try to avoid them. If I run into one, I'll stop reading it.
Mm-hmm. Like if you don't know if it's going to be negative or not, you'll just kind of leave it be.
Well, usually I think most people who like tag me on Twitter or something have the courtesy not to tag me on a negative review. Mm-hmm. It's extremely rare that somebody will, it's just that isn't very nice to tag somebody on a very cutting review. I mean, I think constructive criticism, or people perhaps totally not liking every single word written in a book, that's going to happen, and and they're going to mention that in a book. But a scathing review, people don't tend to bring those to my attention. So, and when they do, I just get out of it really quickly, because it won't help anything.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. And it's kind of one of those things that writing is so personal to every person. Like when you're reading a story, you never know what's going to offend someone. So when you're writing, like, it's better to just write. Yes. And like not even worry about it. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, they gave me another question. Same person that said, I have been a big fan for many years, joined your Facebook when you had 500 followers. How has your writing process changed since then?
Well, I don't write as fast as I did before. I used to write as much as I could all the time. I would get up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning. I'd be at my computer between 5:30 and 6 in the morning, and I would write until 10 or 11 at night. I would bake a corn dog, and I would eat some, cheese puffs or something, and I would just write for 16, 17 hours a day. It was insane, and I was just completely obsessed with it. And so that's why I could write books in a week or 2 weeks, because I was, writing like that. And that's 7 days a week. I never took a day off. And then when my book started selling, other stuff, you have emails to do, and website updates and social media and stuff to do, but I still worked like that. So I was able to produce a lot faster. And now I'm trying to slow down a little bit, and live a little bit of life in between.
Yeah.
So that's what's changed. And I'll tell you, it's very frustrating, because I love what I do. You know, it's kind of weird. You know, when I do interviews for blogs and stuff, they'll say, "What are your hobbies?" And I'm like, writing.
Yeah.
That's also my job, and it's my hobby. So it's kind of like what my sister was. When I was sick, she said, "I hope you took some time to just relax." And I actually read the 3 series to get it ready for print. And so essentially I worked, but you know, I read.
Yeah.
So anyway, my job doesn't suck, but I do have to, you know, go to movies and, you know, do other things too.
Yeah, take breaks.
That's what's changed the most. And travel, a lot of travel.
And I had a question too. So, when you're finished with the story, do you ever miss the characters, or like whenever you're done and you've put it down, do you ever like wish to go back to them?
Yeah. It's very. When I write a book, I always hit this juncture where I slow down writing. I tend to be very into the story and, you know, like I said, obsessed with it. But there's always this spot about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through that I slow down significantly, and it's because I am going to, and I couldn't figure out why.
Mm-hmm.
And it troubled me because, you know, it was like, do I not know what I'm doing? Am I losing my mojo? What's happening? And it was because I figured it out. It was because I was going to have to say goodbye to the characters. So I was psychologically slowing down my writing process so I didn't have to leave their story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before I started publishing, when I started publishing, I had like 25 or 27 novels all done or mostly done. And most of them were mostly done because I quit the book at that juncture because I didn't want to say goodbye. And I was, you know, when I was trying to figure out how to stop myself from doing that, I realized, you know, that I've done it from the very beginning. And now I don't stop myself from doing it. I just write it out. If I only write a chapter a day rather than 2, then that's how it goes. You know, yeah. I need to spend time with them and, you know, have our time.
Yeah. I think the same could go for reading books too. Whenever you get to that point, a lot of times, I mean, I know what point it usually happens for me, but I'll put it down because like it'll be maybe when there's a lot of angst and then the characters finally get together and then it's like, okay, I don't want to like go through it. Like have to kind of change my mood. I was in like this mood of like all this angst and now it's like this love story, so I kind of have to set it down and then come back to it, that kind of thing. But okay, so I have a few more questions. Stephanie K asked, since I read the scene, I really want to know what Lee whispers in Indy's ear on their wedding day. Do you remember what you let Lee whisper?
I don't say what he whispered because that's between Lee and Indy. I never say. But the one cool thing about that is you can make up whatever you want him to say to her.
Yeah. That's good. And then Monica Valentine, she asked, do you plan to write a memoir?
No, maybe, I don't know. It's funny. I'm laughing. It's a very sweet thing to say because I don't think my life has been that interesting. But it kind of has. It would be interesting to like maybe do like short stories of a very funky, weird life. You know, like when I was in a cave in Venezuela to see bats. And these Venezuelan women were in there wearing high-heeled shoes, you know, these clickety-clack shoes. And it's like we were genuinely caving, you know. It's not, you know, they're all dressed up in clickety-clack shoes, and I'm like, you're gonna die in here, and we're all gonna die because we're gonna have to carry you out and all to see these bats. It was that would be a funny story, but maybe. I don't know.
She says your life is so interesting. I'd love it if you do. Your Facebook stories are a hoot.
Well, that's nice.
Let's see. Okay, someone on Twitter asked me, can you please ask Kristen Ashley about Eric Turner's story?
Eric is going to be. He has never let me go. You know, you had asked me earlier about Deke and when I knew I was going to get a book. I knew Eric was going to get a book when I was writing Rock Chick Reckoning. So and I always knew that he would end up in LA with Mace. So I just like the idea of that being resolved with him and Mace and Stella, and him finding his own somebody to be their bodyguard or to protect them. So that's what I was setting up in Unfinished Heroes with Sebring. You know, not to do any spoilers for anybody that saw Sebring, but that's what hasn't read Sebring. You might want to mute it for a little while, but Eric is going to go to LA and he's going to and Mace is going to help him out with dealing with getting rid of the problem at the FBI, and he's going to find his girl there, and then but also I was hoping to use that as my way to drag the Unfinished Heroes into Mace's story too, you know, because Eric and Nick are so tight. You know, with Nick comes Night, and with Night comes Sylvie, and you know, so I don't have to say goodbye to them. I always try to keep all these doors open so I don't have to say goodbye to the characters, and I can drag them in anytime I want. So there, that was why I did that.
That's cool. Okay, and then, well, Susan asked us if we're still doing or if you're still doing the California connection to the Rock Chicks. So obviously, you are still planning on doing that, and you talked about that a little bit earlier. Then Kelsey Jensen asked if you could give any advice to aspiring authors besides the usual just write. What would it be?
I actually did an interview recently with, I'm completely blanking right now who I did it with. I wish I remember, but they asked this question too, and I was together enough to have a really good answer, and it was not to follow any trends and not to be yourself. And I liked what I said was, they tell you to dance like nobody's looking, read or write like nobody's going to read it. And a girlfriend of mine sent me this great quote, and I put it on my wall. The whole duty of a writer, I have to, hang on. It's a quote by E.B. White, and it's the whole duty of a writer is to please and satisfy himself, and the true writer always plays to an audience of one. That's the major thing I would say, is to, you know, if everything's, you know, Game of Thrones, everybody starts writing fantasy. Hunger Games, everybody starts writing dystopia. Twilight, everybody starts writing vampires. Don't write to sell books, write because you love to write. And the other question they asked, which was really great, was, do you think it was luck or work that, you know, that made your writing take off? And I thought that was a fabulous question. It's both. You have to have a little luck. My luck was Marie's from Marie's book blog, reviewed Sweet Dreams, and people started to discover my books. But before that, I'd worked my ass off. You know, I had written, but I also I wanted to make it my living, so I had my website up and going. I had tons of information on there. I had tons of books ready to roll and was publishing them. I had my social media together. I had a newsletter going out. So it's not just luck, and it's not just work. It's hopefully you can find the perfect storm where both of them happen for you. So I hope that helps rather than just right.
And then just to stem off that as well, a lot of your books are self-published. How was the process of that versus, like, I know now you're working with publishers, so what's the difference that you find?
I find that the one big difference is that my traditionally published books take a lot of time to get published, and because I can write a book and then it can be edited, and we're sending it out to bloggers for advanced reviews, and we're getting the marketing done and stuff like that. I mean, I finished Bounty, I don't know, in January, end of December maybe. And it's going to be out in April. And And so I'm really close to that book. I remember it, you know, it's not that far in my rear view.
Mm-hmm.
And with a traditionally published book, you know, it takes months and months and months for it to be published. And so you're a little more distant from it. You've written like 2 or 3 books in between, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you're kind of not in that zone anymore. And so yeah, that's one of the big differences.
And like the process of it being published, I mean, I don't really know too much about self-publishing, but is it simpler? Like, is it because you have the control, or is it still kind of...
I'm a control freak. So, yes. I mean, I like, I like that. I like that I know my editors, and my copy editors, and, you know, I pick the cover, and I write the back blurb, and I write, you know, I pick the quotes for the marketing graphics, and so it's all, yes. Totally a control freak. And my books mean a lot to me. I mean, it's not just putting time into it. They're my babies. They're my creations. These people live in my head. They don't ever die. They continue to live in my head. They keep me company. So being able to nurture that fully is I love that. That said, you know, it is nice to also to hand that over to somebody, especially since they have, you know, it's not like they mess around or they don't have the same goals as you do. You know, they want people to read your books, you know, and they know what they're doing. So it's just not as fast and not always totally in your control.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. And then what you just said sparked another question. So how you still have the characters with you all the time. Do you sometimes maybe write stories for them, just like short little things that keep replaying in your head, or are you usually focused on what you're currently writing?
I'm usually no. When I say goodbye to characters, I tend to say goodbye to them unless they come to me within a new story. Mm-hmm. You know, like Joe Callahan is in Bounty. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't. I want to start doing that because I like the idea of, you know, writing little bonus things. I've done a couple of those recently with Tabby and Shy and Elvira, and put them on my website, and it was really fun. You know, and for me it's only 10 pages in Word. You know, and it takes about a day, half day a day to do that. But it's really fun to jump in with this character again and be with them. So it's just finding the time.
Awesome. And then another question Monica Valentine asked is, will Samuel Sterling and Lady Luck have a book?
Excuse me. I would love to give him a book. I would love to, but I don't know. I have like so many books to write, you know, that I'm beginning to worry about. You know, people are asking for a book for Darius. People want Marcus and Daisy to have a book. People want Hap and Lucy to have a book. People want Emma and Lachlan to have a book. They want Sam Sterling to have a book. And then they want Mason Stella's new series. And of course, you know, the finales to the Magdalene series and the Fantasyland series. So I want, you know, in a perfect world, there'd be like 4 of me, and we'd all have like and we'd just be typing like crazy people. But it's not a perfect world. So I don't know. I love him, and I actually gave him his heroine Jada for that very purpose, to one day tell his story. So I never say never except to say never. You know, the only thing I will never do is I will never write books for Kate and Kira from At Peace, because they're based very, very much on my nieces, and I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
But other than that, you know, who knows what's going to, you know, I mean, Deke wasn't supposed to get a book. Eddie Chavez wasn't supposed to get a book. Hank Nightingale wasn't supposed to get a book. So you never know where I'm going to go.
Yeah. And someone, Hungry Girl Stylish World asked, you've mentioned coming out with a BDSM genre novel. What kind of research did you have to do for that, or any of your other books?
Well, for the BDSM one, I actually that we started talking about this before with the story with Valentine. I was talking about with that started with Wildest Dreams. Then I pulled it out, and then I put it. I did the novella with Broke a Dove, and then I decided not to. So Valentine actually made me want to jump into this genre. I wanted to do a BDSM with a male sub, the submissive being male. And I just didn't have the courage to do it. And then I read Joey W. Hill's Natural Law, where she had a very, have you read that, Sarah?
I haven't.
It's exceptional. I recommend it. It's it's tough going. I don't want to say tough going because I don't want to say anything negative about this book, because there's nothing negative about this book. It's beautifully written. It's a great story. Wonderful characters that you fall in love with, and the guy is hot. He's a hot guy, but he's a submissive, and it was really awesome. And I just lost myself in this book. I didn't want the world to continue turning. I just wanted to be in this book forever. And so I thought, I can never do it as good as Joey, but I'm going to do this. And I just dropped everything and wrote Amelie and Olivier's story. I just went right up to my computer and I wrote this book like in a week and a half, and I haven't written a book that quickly in a long time. But I did have, you have to be careful, because this, is an interesting world, and there are rules, and there are things that, I like to break rules, but there are things that you have to understand and know. So I did a lot of mostly dominatrix blog reading, and a lot of reading about the definition of an alpha sub. Because I thought Joey had made that up. She was awesome, and she made that up and had the best idea ever. But she, it's a thing, and so I and then I incorporated, how I wanted Amelie and Olivier to interact, and it isn't going to be. I'm not about being about the rules and very strict about things, and the book explains that. But hopefully it will be a series, and it's going to start coming out next year.
Awesome! I'm excited. It's a little bit different, and I'm excited. Going off of that too, as well. Someone asked, "How do you successfully write across so many genres?"
Lucky, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm not anymore, but I'm trying to get back into it. Was such a reader. I was actually watching Supernatural last night, and I'm like, I'm everywhere. I watch Supernatural, and I watch Game of Thrones, and I watch Blind Spot, and I watch Strike Back, and I watch Banshee. I don't have anything that I'm not that sci-fi nerd, or that that fantasy gal or whatever. I am all of them in one, and maybe that's why you have a little kitty back there. It's your puppy.
Yeah.
Does he have purple on his feet?
Yeah, so he's gaining weight, and we wanted to take him for walks, but he's pure white, so his paws got really, really dirty. So I asked the groomers to just dye him to see how it worked. But yeah, he's
so cute.
His name's Oliver.
I thought his behind end was a pillow until you scooted over. Oh, so cute. I love the purple feet. That's adorable. Anyway, I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm such an animal freak.
I'm the same way.
What I'm saying.
But oh yeah, you were talking about genres and just being able to write across all of them.
That must be why. I don't know, because I like them all. So I clearly have an extremely vivid imagination. So
yeah. That's awesome. And then let me see. So someone asked just now, Mel to Wish. She says, don't know if anyone or if this has been answered, but what are some of your favorite romance, or what's some of your romance book recommendations?
Well, I always do this in I always cheat, because people are like, what's your favorite? And I always do like my favorite in different categories. I always say, vintage from the 80s, the Judith McNaught books, her historicals, and even her contemporaries. So Kingdom of Dreams, Once and Always, Almost Heaven, and then Paradise, but Jude Devereaux, Joanna Lindsay's Warrior Woman is really, really good. So those are, and I'm trying to remember, they're all have like J names, and I thought, like Jill Chavez, you have to have a J name to be a really awesome romance novelist. So Jude Devereaux, Judith McNaught, Joanna Lindsay, and there was another one that now I'm blanking. Maybe it'll come to me. And but more contemporary ones, or more not contemporary novels, but ones that I've read recently. Jen Bennett's Roaring Twenties series. I've read the first 2 books in that series, and obviously it's set in the Roaring Twenties in San Francisco. And the first book was really, really, really good. The second book was really, 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 really good. I mean, it was kind of like, you don't think that she's going to be able to top the first book, and then the second book was even better. And so I've got the third one on my Kindle, so I'm looking forward to reading that. Like we were talking earlier, I'm reading Kylie Scott's Lick from the Stage Dive series, and I'm loving that. And I've got the next one in that series already downloaded, so that's very exciting. Joey W. Hill's Natural Law. I also read Mistress of My Soul. I started to get into the series that's in, and they don't get worse for sure. She's really, really a good writer. She has a way of telling a story, and it's very deep and it's very intense. And you can tell she puts everything into it, but also she has a fabulous command of the English language. It's really beautiful to read. So yes. And Jill Chavez is another one of my favorites, because I like her characters. I like the reality of her characters. I like some of the things that she tackles. I like that she always puts animals in her books. And I like that she's funny. It's really nice to go to a novel and be able to know you're going to laugh out loud. Stop completely and just get a good giggle out of it. Sometimes you need that. Oh, and as Alessandra Torr's Black Lives. You might, when you start reading it, you might, if you haven't read it yet, you might wonder what the heck I'm doing, but stick with it. You'll get me.
With that one. Cool. And someone else asked, Mel Tuish, she asked, you have so many distinct series. Which series has been your favorite / funnest to write? I mean, we kind of talked about that, but do you have any other besides The Rock Chick? Like, what's your runner-up?
What's my runner-up? I'm looking at them right now. That's why it's really, I loved being in the Burgh, because I grew up in Brownsburg, and you never really sever ties from your hometown. And I've lived a variety of different places, and I miss it. I've always missed it. And so it was really fun. It was very, very, very hard to stop writing that series. Mm-hmm. I kind of wish that I could write it forever, just because I could always be, it's not like that anymore. It's not totally like that anymore. So I could always be in the Burgh of my youth. Mm-hmm. So that's a definite, favorite. And I really love the Magdalene series, because I'm really proud of that series, because the characters are actually quite a bit older than your romance novel characters, and I know people are definitely getting into heroes and heroines in their 30s and their 40s, but these are heroes and heroines are in their way late 40s, and I love it that Soaring hit the New York Times, because that means people read me, obviously, but it also means that there's an audience for this kind of and you don't stop being vital, and you don't stop being beautiful, and you don't stop being sexual, when you're not 25. You continue to live. And there's a Mellencamp song called The Real Life. Mm-hmm. I want the real life. I don't want to sit at home and watch TV. It's about midlife crisis. It's about how suddenly you're not seen as being important anymore, or having any relevant anymore, and that's bullshit. It's total bullshit. So I love that series has been so well received, because these people are past their midlife. They're getting into their 50s, and there's still these awesome characters with issues to get through and baggage that they're handling, and falling in love and having great sex.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of mine too. I was kind of nervous whenever you released it that you were going to be writing older characters, just because I am younger and I'm like, I just don't know. And then, of course, I fell in love, and I recently reread the second book in that series, and it's so good. Like what the main character has to go through and all of that just was very, I don't know, I still connected even though I can't connect. You know what I mean? I still can understand. So.
Well, the other part about that series that's really cool is that you can actually dive into these things that you can't dive into with heroes and heroines in their 20s. I mean, Amelia's troubles with her children are troubles that a woman her age are going to have, because of the decisions that she made in her life. So it was really interesting to explore. And that whole series is about the heroines making rather bad decisions and getting to the other side of that, or doing bad things and getting to the other side of that, and with their maturity, it's an interesting way to approach a romance novel, because you wouldn't 20-year-olds don't have teenage kids.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah, and it was an added bonus too that the kids were there, and then you got to see the conflicts between the two different, not to give anything away, but the two different families and the conflicts between them. So, yeah, I mean, I love whenever you add, older kids to your books. I really love the game in that, the gamble. Yeah, right. The gamble, the game. I don't know what I'm thinking. Yeah, with the kids and how they got to play out their love story in it as well. Is that?
Oh, that's game. You're right. Games of the Heart.
Okay, Games of Heart. Yeah, I was like, am I all off here? Dusty, that's Dusty's story. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, I love with those added characters, and then even At Peace when you mentioned the girls in that book too. Like that's all really fun added bonuses to your story as well. So that's really cool. Let's see. Are there any plans?
Honey, can we just take a couple more questions, because I'm hosting Easter tomorrow. And I kind of need to get to the grocery store, or we're not going to. I've been watching the Food Network way too much, and tomorrow everything that I'm making is going to be something that I'm concocting. So I need to go get my potatoes and pork chops and stuff like that. Is that okay? Absolutely. Last couple ones, yeah.
Yep. So there's one here. Stephanie K asked, "Are there any plans of your books being filmed?"
Yes.
Ooh.
I can't say anything more right now because I haven't been given the go-ahead to do that, but yes. So when I'm allowed to shout that from the rooftops, I will shout it.
All right, let me see if there's any on Twitter. Nope, I think we are good there. Okay, here's one more. Where do you find your awesome funky jewelry?
My awesome funky jewelry. Well, I'm 47, as I mentioned, and so I've had many years to collect. But so everywhere, everywhere. I don't know how to, because I lived in Denver and I lived in England. I've traveled quite a bit, and I've got jewelry from New Zealand. I have jewelry from
everywhere.
Paris. I have, yeah. So these are Knight Rider though. These are two of my Knight Rider rings. Can't.
Oh,
That's my new obsession. So.
All right. Well, I think those are all of the questions that we have from people as well. And I think that I got all my questions out as well. This was so much fun. Thank you to all the people who joined. Again, I'm sorry for the malfunction in the beginning, but thanks for joining us. And yeah, I hope that you guys have a good day.
Thank you. See ya.
And you can find Kristen Ashley. I'll have her website linked down below as well as her Twitter handle, so you can find all of her amazing books there. And we'll see you later.
Bye.